Okay, this video we're going to talk about how to add like a start or end screen, or really it could be instructions, it could be anything. We want to add additional screens or like an intro to our game. So this is our, go back and I'm just showing you, this is our coordinate grid game. So as my game sits right now, I've got my character down here, and when I hit the green button, it tells where I'm at, and then I go to where I need to be. Now, I don't have any real instructions. So I don't have anything, nobody knows that it's supposed to be the arrow keys or whatever it is. So I'm going to show you how we can add a start screen, and you can add multiple screens, multiple instructions. You could add transition screens to go to the next level. Lots of things that you can do. So the way that we're going to do this, the first thing we want to do is we want to add an additional screen or a start. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go to our backdrops, and I've already got one in. I'm going to choose a backdrop, and we're going to say where we're at. So I'm going to start just blue sky, because we're going to do this. I'm trying to make like a Top Gun type themed airplane one now with my tomato and scratch cat. So I'm just going to go with the blue sky. So now I've got my blue sky background on here. Now you notice that it says here I've got 3 backdrops, but I don't see all the backdrops. In order to see the backdrops, I want to be clicked on the stage, and then I want to go to my backdrops, and I can see all of my different ones that I've got here. So I've got a city with water that I've got for a backdrop. I've got my blue sky, and I've got my XY grid. Now what you could do is change the name of them. So I'm going to change this, and I'm going to call this start screen, which is going to really help me so I know what I want to have. And then maybe I want to make my end game, this is going to be my game over screen, right? And so I've got my game over screen, and this XY grid is going to be my game screen, right? Because when when players are playing my game, I want them to kind of know how to play this game, how to do what they're doing. Okay, so there I've got them labeled appropriately so I know what they are. So now what we're going to do is the next thing that we're going to do is we have to go back into our sprites. So now that I've got our backdrops and I've got them labeled, I'm going to go back into our code. And we're not going to code anything here just yet, but I'm going to go into our sprites. And right now, everything that we've done has been when green flag is clicked. Okay, so what we're going to do though is we're going to take that off, and I want you to get rid of all of your when green flags are clicked for your code, for your characters. Okay, so I'm going to take off when my green flag is clicked, and I'm going to make sure I don't have anything else that is there for when the green flag is clicked. And I'm going to go into, so this is the code for my sprite 1, and this, if we go back to our game, this setup where we go to our random position, tells where the bogey's at for the plane, right, for my tomato to get to it. And I've even got a sound in here of where we're at, so that of where we're going and when they get a score. And then I have my ending here that with my timer, setting my timer to 20, waiting 1 second, changing the score, change the time by 1 when the time gets less than 1, play the sound end, and we're going to stop. I'm going to show you some other stuff here. Then in my apple, here it is. I got to go in and I got to take out my on green flag click. So I'm going to take this out. So there's my green flag click. And here is I've got my apple, and I've got all the commands for my apple on where he's at. So when the green flag is clicked, where do I want him to go to? So again, I'm going to get rid of my green flag. All right, now here's what we've got now. So now we have to set up what are our conditions to get our thing set up. So now what we want to do is I'm going to set this to, so this is our game screen. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go under my stage, and I'm going to start to do some code here. So in here, I'm going to put this when green flag is clicked. So when I click the green flag, the very first thing that I want to do is I want to have my backdrop change to my start screen. So what I'm going to do is go under my looks tab, and I'm going to switch backdrop to, and this is, see where I named this start screen, game over screen, right, next backdrop. So I know what I want it to do. So I want to change it to my start screen. So now when I hit my green flag, right, my start screen comes up. Now there's a couple of things that we got here. I still see my sprites for the game. So I don't want to have my sprites necessarily start for the game. Maybe you do want to have your sprite there for the game. but I don't want that tomato to be there, right? So what I'm going to do is, well, I'm going to do this, and what we're going to do is we're going to make a couple of messages. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go under our control, and what we're going to do is we're going to set up, and you can make messages to control just about anything that you want to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to broadcast a message under my events. And so I am going to broadcast, and it's going to be message one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new message, and we're going to call this setup. Okay, so we're going to broadcast message setup. All right, so here's broadcast message setup. Now here's what we're going to do. So this is going to broadcast the message setup. So here's how we're going to do this for our setup. In our setup, what we are going to do is we are going to hide our sprites because we don't want our sprites to be there. We don't want the score, the time, or anything to be there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my sprite here, and I am going to do here when I receive setup. So we're going to do here when I receive setup, right? The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to hide my character. So I'm going to hide him. So let's do here under my looks, I'm going to go to hide. So when I receive setup, I'm going to hide my sprite. So now watch this. When I hit the green button, Scratch Cat is gone, right? So we've got him there. So now we're going to set up, okay, where do we want him to go? So I'm going to do the same thing for my apple. Okay, so I'm going to go into the apple, and I'm going to do this events when I receive setup. All right, when I receive setup, I'm going to hide. So I'm going to have it go in here to hide. Okay. Now, this is all good and dandy. We got our start screen here, but we got nothing on it. So now you could even hide your score, your variables. You could get your whatever we've got for it. Now, here's what I've got. I want to put a start button on here so that kids know what to do or even how to play. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my stage. And we're going to go into our backdrops here, and there's a couple of things that I can do for my backdrop, right? I can write a text right into my backdrop if I would like to. So I'm going to write my text box right in here, and I'm going to say controls, right? And so then I'm going to do up arrow equals up, down arrow equals down, left arrow equals left, right arrow equals right. Okay, now you can change the color, you can change the font, we can change all kinds of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this. I'm just going to put this up here. Now, obviously, I would put a nice title in here. I could call what am I going to call my game, all of those things. But I also want to make like a start button. So I'm going to go and I'm going to add another sprite. So I'm going to choose a sprite. And you actually have buttons in your sprites. So what we can do is I can come in here and I can put button. And you have a couple of different buttons that you can do. So I'm going to do this button 2. And I'm going to put button 2 right in here. Right now, what I'm going to do is with button 2 is I'm going to go in and write some code for button number 2. Okay, so now I'm going to go in, and what I also want to do, I'm going to write start in this. So I'm going to go to the costume for button 2, and I'm going to edit button 2 a little bit. So I'm going to go in here, and same thing, I'm going to add some text. I can draw a text box here, and I'm going to write start. Right now, again, I want to change my color. I can highlight this whole thing. I can change the color to, maybe I want to make it this green. Let's make it a nice bright green here. There it is. I'm going to make it a nice bright green. I can make it larger. I'm going to move this text right into the middle. There's my start button. Okay, so now I have my start button. So now there's lots of things you can do. You could create your own sprite and make your own start button. You can upload a start button that you find from an image or anything else that you've got here. So now what we're going to do is I am going to now write in some code to get our start screen going. So now inside this button to sprite, and what I'm going to do is I'm even going to rename this, and I'm going to call this start, so we know what it is. When the button it's my start button. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to my code, and I'm going to write in here for events when this sprite is clicked. Okay, so when this sprite is clicked, what do we want it to do? We're going to broadcast the message to start game. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create another event. We're going to broadcast. We're going to broadcast, and we're going to make a new message, and we're going to call this start game. Right? Okay. So we're going to do this broadcast. This was start game. So now what we've got here, so I'm going to broadcast this start game. Okay. And so for start game, we want it to do all these things that we want to do. So now what we're going to do is what's going to happen when we do the start game. So this is where we put a little bit together. So we're going to do here. So we're going to do here when I receive, and we're going to put this up top. When I receive the start game. First thing we have to do, because my sprite is hidden, is I want to show him. So when I receive start game, I want to show my sprite. First thing we're going to do is we're going to switch our backdrop to the game screen. Oh, I don't want to do that, to the game screen. Then we're going to show our sprite. We're going to show this sprite. Then we're going to set up and do our set score. So now we have to make sure, because my sprite's hidden, so I want to make sure that I can see him. So we're going to switch to the game screen, show the sprite, and we're ready to go. So now we're going to make sure I don't have anything else in here. Oh, I got to set my timer too. So same thing under my events. I'm going to do when I receive start game. Okay. Now, everything that you had previously that was on there, you got to set up to get this. So now I'm going to go into my Apple, and I got to do the exact same thing. So when I receive, because I want him to go right to the center. So when I receive start game, he's going to go right to the center. Now, remember, he's hidden, so my tomato's hidden. So what we're going to do is do another when I receive start game. We want to show that sprite. We want to show that sprite. Show that sprite. There it is. And then we're going to run that forever of where he's at. So when I receive the start game. All right. So let's see what we've got here. So when we go here, I hit the start button. Everybody's hidden. I click the start button. There it is. Oh, but my start button is still there. You gotta fix that. So all we have to do is when I get that, I'm gonna hide my start button. So I'm gonna go back into here. So I'm gonna broadcast start game, and then I'm gonna hit this hide. So I'm gonna hide it. So let's try it again. So when I hit the start button, I broadcast and hit hide. Perfect. Now, here's the thing. When I hit my start button again, you notice my sprite's not there. I got to tell it to show up too. So I also have to put inside this one a when green flag clicked. I want to make sure that I show the sprite so that it shows up when the green flag is clicked. So I want to have a when green flag clicked. I want to make sure that this sprite is visible. But then when the sprite is clicked, it broadcasts start game, and then I hide. Okay, so now here's what we've got. So let's test this out. I'm going to hit my green flag. I've got my instructions. Now you can add lots of cool stuff to this. I can add instructions. I can add pictures. I can add a start screen. You could go through a dialogue where you go to another scene and they're talking before you get to the battle or the game. I hit the start button. Everything hides. I go to play my game. Right? And my game is going good and everything is there. Right? Now, here's the beautiful thing. So you've got your start screen. Your start screen is there. Now what you need to do is how do we put in our end screen or our game over screen? Right? And so really all that is all you have to do is set up in your coding where your game over is. So like when I go in here to my sprite one, here's my timer. So I've got my timers counting down. I got 1 second. I'm changing it by one. When my time gets less than one, which means it gets to zero, I play that end sound that you just heard, and then I stop everything. Right now, here's what I could do is I could just as easily drop in here an event, and I'm going to broadcast a message that says a new message, and we're going to call this game over. Okay. And so this is going to be our game over. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this stop all out of here, right? And I'm going to throw that into the trash. So now I'm going to go back to my backdrops, and I'm going to add in here another message when I broadcast setup, and then I'm going to put in here when I receive game over. I'm going to switch to my game over screen, switch backdrop to my game over screen, and I'm actually going to, here, I'll do this too. I'm going to add this one in here. I'm going to take this. I've got this play sound. I'm going to even take that out of there, and I'm going to copy that into the other one. So I'm just going to broadcast the game over just to show you what we've got here. And so I'm going to go back into this backdrop, and I'm going to go into this play sound, and I've got my sounds here, so I can go in and I could record a sound. I've got a pop here. I had an ending sound. I don't know what happened to it. So I'm going to play this pop sound, but I could record something just as easily. So I'm going to go in here to play sound, pop until done, and then we're going to stop all. So you want to make sure that you do the stop all to end your game. So where's my events here? Stop all under my control, and that'll end your game. So now here we go. I hit my start button. There it is. I've got my controls up and down. I hit my start button. Timer's going down for us. Now what should happen, I'm playing the game, trying to get to 134, negative 129. Now, this is my game right now is really hard. I could, I don't have anything, but what I could do is if I get to it, I could give myself another time. Now let's listen what happens at the end here. There it is. And so it ended the game and changed my start screen. Now, just like what we did before, you could, when you broadcast a game over, I could hide my sprites. I could put up a sprite of maybe my scratch cat is dead or he's laying on his side. I could put up a text that says game over. You got the high score. You lost. You won. Lots of options with your screens. Hopefully this helps with your coding.